Estamos pasando esta película en el campo de concentración en Alemania y son testimonios de personas que han logrado sobrevivir.
Mantel gekommen, hat Jod
And then an SS man in a white coat came with eyeliner and a brush. And he wrote numbers on our chests. 1 for those who, in his opinion, were fit for hardest labor. 2 for those who could do some light work. And 3, this time on the forehead, for those who were not fit for work at all. They took those to block 23, where they were left to die slowly.
Dass für diese Leute für keine Arbeit zuständig sind. Und die haben auf den Block 23 gegeben und die sind dann zur Zeit schon leicht langsam entstanden.
After being allocated to their blocks, prisoners were at the mercy of block elders and capos.
Parece que según cuando iban caminando, los iban marcando con números. Caminaban muchas veces desnudos.
The guy was a sadist, a murderer. You can't even imagine the like. He hit people hard on the head with both hands, on the ears, and they just fell over. They were shouting and screaming all day. People got 25 blows again. Come here, 25 for you, for nothing at all. It was so cold that we huddled together. One of us stood there, and the others stood around so that it wasn't quite so cold. He called that oven. And then he came and hit us on the head with his rubber. It was indescribable.
Nicht so kalt sein. Und das haben wir oben gerufen. Wenn der Schiff gekommen und der wird in den Kopf geschlagen mit seinem Gummi. Es war unbeschreiblich.
An Schläge wird ein Mensch gewöhnt sich irgendwie dran.
Getting beaten. Well, people. Somehow they get used to it. And with time, and the frequent beatings, it gets so that you don't really notice this anymore. But the humiliation. To be beaten and not to be in a position to put up a fight, because those who did put up a fight, they wouldn't be here to tell the tale. That's how it was. They were simply shot, those who put up a fight, when they did not like something. But the humiliation, when you had never experienced something like that, the first week,
Dice que siempre le pegaban, los maltrataban, si decían algo, si protestaban, los mataban.
and then it all starts all over again.
Todos los días y a cada rato.
As in Flossemburg main camp, everyday life in those subsidiary camps was characterized
Este
by
es un
hard
video
work,
que nos están
physical
pasando en
abuse,
el
and
campo de
death. Such as, for
concentración
example,
de
at
Alemania.
camp, where prisoners had to dig a tunnel system into the hills to be used by the armaments industry.
¿Y eso qué? ¿Se escondían?
E poi lavoro.
And then work. We had to march about 6 kilometers to this beautiful town of Hersbruck. The people there saw us march, accompanied by dogs trained to bite our legs. We were covered in wounds, full of lice, run down, in tatters, with only cloaks on our feet.
Siamo stracci con questi zoccoli di legno. Queste sono le cose, ma poi le cose orribili che succedevano nel campo.
Cosas
And then the horrible
horribles.
things that happened in the camp. Seeing someone hanged, that had become quite ordinary. Death was ever present. Smashed human bodies. We lost track of those who died and who survived, particularly in Hatburg. It was really horrible there, especially what we did to each other. It wasn't the Germans commanding here. The capos were the worst. Capos who bragged that they had murdered more than 10 people a day.
Erano delitti che facevamo noi uno contro l'altro. Il capò sono state le cose più terribili. I capò che vantavano di aver ucciso 10 persone in un giorno.
Accommodation for inmates was crushed, up to 4 people having to share a narrow plank bed, and hygienic conditions were hardly bearable.
¿Cómo?
The other outstanding thing about that barrack was the sanitary conditions. They were
4 personas dormían en una cama.
totally inadequate for toilets or washing. To keep clean, to keep one's hygiene was almost impossible. So after a while, you know, you felt dirty, lousy. You didn't have a toothbrush. You didn't have toothpaste. You didn't have a towel to dry yourself with. So after a while, you got to feel that you indeed, perhaps you are an untermensch. You know? So it was
No
all
tenían nada de
dehumanizing,
objetos personales, ni pasta, ni cepillo, ni jabón, ni toallas, nada para secarse.
The situation was similar for female inmates, who had to do forced labor exclusively in Flossemburg's subsidiary camps. For example, in Zwoedau, where the women had to manufacture parts for the air armaments industry. Those who did manage to muster the strength tried to hang on to a last vestige of dignity.
Parce que pour se laver, il fallait être courageux, c'est-à-dire qu'on a eu de l'eau.
You needed a lot of energy to wash. There was water, but in troughs like kettle troughs, and many didn't have the strength for that anymore. But I washed from head to toe every day, almost until February. After that,
Y ella también es prisionera.
because I started getting weaker and weaker from that time on. That's how you managed to cope with all this, because at least you were clean when you reported to work in the factory. There was another problem, how to keep your clothes clean, because we had no change of clothes, and so we got into the habit of washing.
Alors, il y avait un autre problème qui se posait, c'était aussi le problème des vêtements. Comment tenir nos vêtements tant qu'on n'avait pas de rechange. Le problème, c'était aussi le séchage.
But drying was the problem. Where to dry the clothes? At 25 below zero outside, that isn't easy. We spread the wet clothes on straw mats and slept on it all night. They would dry the next morning, and we could wear them again. But of course you didn't sleep well that way. But at least you remained presentable. That's also a question of pride and of keeping your spirit. That was very important.
C'était très important.
No tenían donde lavar la ropa, donde secarla.
Worn down by daily atrocities, ever-present hunger, and the struggle for survival, not all inmates managed to preserve their dignity and humanity.
People were so callous. Most of those who had been here for a longer time, they were so callous that there was no humanity left worth mentioning.
Aber bei den anderen, die von Hunger krepierten, an dem
But
Moment,
with the others, those who were starving to death, at that moment, all feelings, they just don't exist anymore. Because you have only one thought in your head. How can I get something to eat on top of what I've already had? Any feelings just stop there.
und da hört das Empfinden auf. An dem Moment, da hast du noch...
At that moment, you only have one thought. How can I get more? When you're capable of anything.
Und da bist du zu allem fähig.
It's almost like a animal instinct, drive. The animal doesn't think about hope. He just knows how to save himself from the danger. And that's what we were reduced to, as our humanity of thinking and hoping and was taken away from us with our names and everything else. Everything that was yours, own, was not your own anymore. Even your body wasn't your own. Like we possessed nothing.
Most of all, the inmates dreaded the quarry. Every day, thousands had to quarry granite from the hill, with bare hands, and work the stones. It is here that the physical destruction of the inmates began. extermination by labor.
Здесь издевательство были. Я хочу откровенно, здесь творил садизм. Здесь никогда никого не жалели из лагерников.
Los ponían a trabajar hasta que murieran.
Was the order of the day. Nobody here took pity on any of us prisoners. From here, those who were half dead were taken down the hill and back to camp. Sadism ruled. Many were injured or killed by falling stones. No safety measures, no first aid. It was the same drudgery every day. Half-dressed, with cloaks and bleeding feet, without gloves. People worked the stones.
В деревянных ботинках, от которых всегда кровь на ногах, без рукавиц, еще работал на камне. Это проклятая гора.
This damned hill. How many human lives, how much energy has this hill devoured? I can't find the words for it. The stone was good, but at what a price. Hundreds and thousands of human lives. And the people who worked here were not paid for it. They didn't even think that they might get money for it. They worked for a plate of watery soup, for moldy potatoes, and after work they were allowed to go back to camp. The next morning, everything started again, all over again.
Гнилой картошки и отправлялись в лагерь.
Even before the inmates were marched to the quarry, their daily routine started with the same ritual every day, the roll call on the camp central square.
The Appellplatz, standing to be counted early in the morning in the cold and the rain, and the Oberpfalz wind here was just dreadful. You didn't have any insulation of any sort to protect you from the wind, the weather, and you stood there for hours being counted. It was dark in the morning, early in the winter. And when you came back after work, same thing, you counted again.
Todos los días muy temprano levantaban a todos para contarlos uno por uno.
Der schlechteste Appell war am Heiligen Abend 44.
The most horrible roll call was on Christmas Eve 44. They called us in the evening on Christmas Eve to the Appellplatz for the roll call. It was something like a football goal, and there they hanged 6 inmates.
Er musste 50 Schläge bekommen und muss alle Schläge können nach der 5. oder 10.
And everybody had to get 50 blows, and you had to have them all. If you fell over after the 5th, they poured water over you. You had to get more. And beyond the wire, where the SS people lived, there was a Christmas tree with candles and things.
Public punishment and executions were part of everyday camping. Again and again, inmates had to watch their friends in combat walk towards their death.
Bekam regelrecht aus der Arbeitskommando und wurde von dort aufgerufen.
He was called up from there. They bound his arms. I don't know what with, because there were no handcuffs. But really tight. And then they hanged him. All in 10 minutes. Reading the names of the gallows. After 10 minutes, it was all over.
Zum Galgen und alles in 10 Minuten war vorbei. Und ich habe an sich nur gesehen, wo vorbei marschierte zum Galgen.
And I really only saw when he marched past to the gallows that it was him. I knew the number by heart. But when they shout and scream, you don't hear properly. Only when he marched past.
Ja, und da habe ich dann gebetet. Da habe ich an sämtliche Götter. Du hast
Well, and then I prayed to all the gods, do something, but nothing happened. And since then, religion has been abolished for me. Well, there are moments which were the order of the day then. That's what happened to me. But others had a far worse fate, because I am still here, and others are not.
Ik ben daar nog hier. Nee, und andere sind nicht mehr da.
Aún recuerdan con mucho dolor lo que le hicieron a cada uno de ellos.
So many died. The crematorium couldn't cope. They just piled the dead up on a heap and poured fuel over them and burned them there. You know, and when the smell came up from the valley, that also had an effect on our psyche.
Wissen Sie, das würde auch psychisch.
Tanta gente moría que el crematorio los quemaban, que no podían quemarlo a todos, entonces lo tienen ahí,
Faced with this,
ahí.
many inmates found no other way out
Cuando trabajan,
but to
pues
end their
los
lives.
quemaron también ahí
Wissen
fuera.
Sie, ich habe auch verzweifelt, wenn ich in
You know,
Tanta
I was
gente
also in
moría
despair
que
when I
no
was in
tenían
the
cómo
quarry.
quemarlo
I found
tan
an
rápido
electric
a
cable
todos.
and wanted to hang myself. In the block, when I wanted to fasten the cable, a Czech hit me and said, "You mustn't do that. You must always hope that you will get home and that someone will help you, and that you too might help somebody."
Du musst immer hoffen, dass du nach Hause kommst, dass dir jemand helfen will und das
I understood that, and that's the way I took life then.
habe ich begriffen und habe ich das Leben so genommen.
There were about 100,000 inmates in Flossemburg. At least 30,000 of them are documented in terrorist arms. Those who survived would never be the same again.
Ich war 17 Jahre alt.
I was 17 years old, but still I was really only 12. During that time when I was there for 5 years, I was damn Jew, bastard, dirty swine, son of a bitch, and so on. 5 years of insults, beatings, hunger, and misery.
Schläge, Hunger und Tod.
Cette future carrière de
Recuerdan
guerre
con mucho dolor.
où il y a tant de camarades qui sont restés.
Muchos de ellos también eran bien jóvenes.
This horrible quarry, this is where my colleagues wait, those who remained here. Indescribable, this place, sad and menacing. I have often wondered how I got away.
À se demander comment j'en suis sorti.
We are quickly disappearing, you know, even though I was one of the youngest here. I'm, 77 years old. And you wonder, we carry a memory with us, a memory of events that are very difficult to convey to others in its true essence, So what will happen once we're gone? And how is memory, our memory, transmitted to future generations is something that I frequently think about.
sujeto que más tiempo estaba ahí. 42 o 45.
Tienes de tropa.